let's pick up the conversation we were talking about this morning on the way here. So we drive past an apartment building, and the conversation goes in the direction of, where the hell are all these people coming from? Like the living, the cost of living. And then you said something along the lines of the affordability. And then we get into this whole thought process of renting versus owning, right?
Right.
All right. So, like, what are your thoughts on this?
No, so I think you can't time the market, but so many people feel like they'd rather rent because the cost of owning is too high, so they don't realize the cost of not owning, what that costs them.
Right. Yeah. And so then I go on to say, you know, I've listened to some younger people speak recently, and I just listen. And I've noticed that in a generational thing, that I find a generation beneath us seems to be more negative connotations towards owning a home because they feel like renting is more affordable. And so then my thought process goes down the train of, if you're comparing apples to apples, right? Let's use an arbitrary number. Let's say $2,500. $2,500 a month is I would say standard rent here, sometimes a little more. But if we just say $2,500 a month, you may not get the house that you want for $2,500, but you got to pay to live somewhere, right? So if in my mind,
we always say that you got to pay to put your head on the pillow,
right?
No matter where you are.
All right. So the way that my brain works is that if I'm going to spend $2,500, I would explain it to a young person who is on the fence, and we would say, you could spend $2,500 to live in an apartment, or you could spend $2,500 to live in a house. Neither of them may be your desired dream outcome. But let's fast forward the dream 5 years. Life happens, situations change, circumstance changes, whatever the case may be. When you leave your apartment in 5 years, I was a little bit more non-PG, but I said,
right.
You know, when you leave, you don't have anything, right? Like you give your notice and that's it. In a house, though, 3 things really happen in my mind. Number one, you are getting tax advantages of owning that you do not get by renting. Would you agree?
Yes, a big deal.
Yeah, it is. And when you break it down like this, so the example that I used was the person whose conversation I was listening to made around $200,000. At $200,000, let's just say at $300 or $200,000 in income, and I know that that's not everybody, but I'm going to use that as a talking point for this conversation specifically. If you're paying $2,500 a month in mortgage, about 70% of that is going to be interest. Okay. Right. So $30,000 a year in mortgage payments times 0.7 is going to put you at around, guerrilla math, $20,000 a year in interest.
Right.
Plus you get to claim the property taxes as a deduction.
Yep.
Okay. So let's just say that's $5,000 a year. So you get the $20,000 a year for interest plus the $5,000 in taxes. You're now at $25,000 in deductions that you cannot physically take if you're renting a property.
Can't take it.
All right. So that reduces your taxable income from $200,000 to $175,000. It just so happens that the tax bracket goes from 32% to 24% when you're under $191,000.
8%.
It's an 8% swing. So if you follow my train of math here, you're dropping your tax bracket, you're getting an 8% pay raise. So imagine at $200,000 a year in income, you're keeping $16,000 a year more.
Wow.
So now all of a sudden, that's roughly $1,300 a month, something like that.
So that's like giving yourself a raise for $1,300 a month.
By doing nothing other than paying a payment that you would already have to pay. It's just where you're paying it and who you're paying it to. So that's advantage number one. Number two, as you're paying this monthly payment, the balance on the mortgage is coming down, the value on the property is going up. And every market is going to be slightly different, but in Florida, we see a little bit more appreciation than a lot of the rest of the country. So even if we were to use super conservative numbers and just say 5% a year, and you purchased a $300,000 property, in 5 years, as that compounds, first year it's 315, year after that it's 330, year after that it's 350, year after that it's 380. So you're talking about, in a 5-year span, the value going from around 300,000 to around 400,000, but every year that you're making payments, the balance goes down and down and down. So you can do something incredible at the end of 5 years, and you can sell this puppy. And this is the thing that I think a lot of people miss the boat on. They're lacking the ability to have a real world conversation with somebody like yourself that can help them kind of see the forest through the trees. So you're talking to a younger generation, right? And you're helping them. Everybody says generational wealth, create wealth, create wealth. But the truth of the matter is that, hey, in this scenario, in 3 years or 5 years rather, because that's what we're using for this scenario, let's just say you even borrowed all of the money. Let's say you put nothing down. You got a first-time home buyer program where you borrowed 100% of the purchase price.
That is possible.
It is. So in 5 years, that's 5 years on 30, that's 20-ish% of the balance, but a large chunk of that's going to be interest. Let's just say you pay down $30,000 of the balance, right? In 5 years, you're going to owe $270. It's worth $400. You sell that, you get $130,000 that you would not have been able to save.
Not only did you get a raise by the tax bracket, and you have to be somewhere anyway.
I forgot about that.
You're getting $130,000 in cash for doing nothing then except sleep at the house and take care of it and make your payment.
That's it. So I've heard younger people say, I'm just going to stick it out and rent. I'm just going to stick it out and rent. And look, it's not a one-size-fits-all type thing. Purchasing is not for everybody, but if you are sticking in an area and you're a young person, mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, and it's in the cards for you, from a financial perspective and being completely unemotional, like 9 times out of 10, would you agree that it makes more financial sense to purchase than it would to rent?
Well, just look at the net worth of a homeowner versus a renter. As funny as you say that, we're looking at a 5-year window. Just had a customer that bought a home in 2019. There was their first house. They were nervous. They didn't know, but we had a conversation similar. They just sold that house. They made $180,000.
Yeah.
She is a server, and he works as a teacher. And they could have never made that kind of money with their salary. They didn't even make that kind of money in 5 years of work.
Right. And they're already obligated. I mean, if you were to just put it on a piece of paper and you were to be super rudimentary about it, you take a piece of paper, you draw a line down the middle, and you put $2,500 at each top and figure out what are your expenses from there. And you start with your living expenses, and everything else equals out to be roughly the same. You're going to have some cost of ownership and maintenance and things of that nature that you wouldn't regularly have. So you do have to incorporate that in. But the benefits from virtually all angles significantly outweigh the non-benefits, or the pros definitely outweigh the cons.
Plus, you just said when you walk away, it's $2,500 a month times 12 times 5 years.
Well, let's do the math. That's $150,000. 2,500 times 12 is 30,000. Times 5 is 150,000.
So 150,000 in 5 years, you walk away. You spent that. That's real dollars.
You get nothing.
But you don't get anything back.
Nothing.
No money. No savings on your taxes.
Right.
No equity in the property. So you're not building wealth.
Yeah, you're owning. For this scenario, it's not going to work out to be the same for everybody, but for this scenario specifically, you're keeping $16,000 a year more. You're essentially in the ballpark of, on a 5-year range, making $130,000. And there's no such thing as free, right? Because you're taking some risk by purchasing a home. But if you're comparing simply monetary figures, apples to apples, mortgage versus rent, and it's around $2,500, in theory, you're walking away in 5 years, if you choose to sell, with $130,000 more in your pocket, plus you would have kept on average $16,000 a year more in your pocket for those 5 years. So that's another 16 times 5, that's 5. That's another $90,000 or $80,000 that you would have kept, as opposed to not having that availability to do it. And you're getting the equity, so it's a $210,000 net positive.
No, it's
by purchasing
unbelievable.
a home.
And you said too, which we took it a step further, we look at how rich people stay rich and poor people stay poor. The rich leverage. Corporations like Apple, they leverage. So you can leverage a real estate acquisition, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
There's down payment assistance, so a big hurdle for people. Renters own, hey, I don't have the money to do it. There's programs to help you get into the house, right?
Yeah.
So you can leverage it. 0 down, 3% down. So you don't need 20% down. You don't need a big chunk. And you can start building wealth using these same principles at any price point.
Great.
And it's never too late. You can't time the market. You can't wait for the prices to come down or wait for the rates to come down.
You don't need to sell me.
I know.
All right, so if you're watching this and you're in Tampa and you want free money, I'm
Free.
just kidding. No such thing as free. But literally, if you are curious about exploring the opportunities and what home ownership could open door-wise for you from a financial perspective, this is your guy, the Diamond.
Just give me a call, 941-724-7653. Comment, like below. More info coming. Derek, thanks so much for coming.
You got it, man.
Way to go.
Yep.